Welcome to Talk on the Pod, the podcast where we delve into the remarkable journey of the Takim Foundation's community, who are showcasing the best of the Arab world and paving the way for a brighter future. I'm your host, Andrea. Today we're joined by Habib Kairouz, a seasoned investor and managing partner at Rho Capital, who spent more than 3 decades navigating the twists and turns of the venture world. From backing founders through the internet era all the way to today, Habib has balanced building a lasting career with a deep commitment to empowering communities in Lebanon. Through his leadership at the Seal Foundation and his work with the Arab diaspora, he's turned success into responsibility and recognition into meaningful action. In this episode, we'll explore his early memories of Beirut, his philosophy of going against the grain, and what it truly means to invest with conviction and purpose. Let's dive in. Habib, welcome to Talk on the Pod, and thank you for being here with us at the New York studio.
Thank you for having me.
Habib, I'd love to start with a bit of the beginnings. For more than 3 decades, you've built a remarkable career on Wall Street, been backing founders through cycles of boom and collapse, and you also have been dedicating yourself to rebuilding the country that you're from through your work with nonprofits supporting sustainable projects in Lebanon. Can you give us a bit of a throwback about what you remember most vividly from growing up there, and how did those early experiences shape who you are?
Well, going back to where I grew up, obviously I grew up at a time that was very tough for Lebanon. It was in the middle of the war, but my memories are all amazing memories. They're memories about growing up in a very large family. Both on my mother's side and my father's side, we come from very large family. Really grew up together, really grew up on the basis of family ties and the roots going back generations. My grandfather on my mother's side had 8 children, built a building in Beirut, gave one apartment to each kid, and 23 cousins grew up in the same building. We had mandatory lunches every Sunday at his house. So on my father's side, we come originally from Sherry. We all used to go up to the Cedars on the weekends, in the holidays. Again, same thing. The family was sprinkled around. Doors were always open. Cousins moved from one place to the next. So those are my most vivid memories from
I
growing up there.
personally love the north of Lebanon. What Tell me us more about the moment where you decided to pursue your education in the US, from deciding to take this leap of faith and then build your career and family abroad. How did you maintain that connection with the country where you're from?
The decision to come here was a decision to just come for 4 years of college.
Yeah.
And like most of us who ultimately left the country, unfortunately, it was about going and getting an education and hopefully coming back. And never did I think 40 years later we'd be having this conversation. Having said that, it's been great. And I've certainly never turned my back on where I came from or the country. And I've stayed in touch. There's not a single year that's gone by that I haven't gone back at least once, if not 3 times. There's not a year that my kids haven't gone back since they were born, and they were all born and raised in New York. So it actually takes some effort, but it's not that much of an effort to keep the ties and
Yeah.
never turn your back on it.
It feels like it's the reality nowadays with most of the diaspora in New York. Everyone has that origin stories of I came for studies and then just ended up staying here.
I had 6 goodbye parties
Wow.
in New York where I was planning to go back. Time something happened and I stayed and
Yeah.
I extended it, and ultimately
What
that
what
is-
would you say was the thing that kept you anchored in this city?
I would say my professional track.
Mm-hmm.
And the situation in Lebanon where the opportunities were not as clear, kept postponing it, hoping for things in Lebanon stabilizing, and ultimately the U.S. track got much faster than what I was waiting for in Lebanon.
You've been at Rho for over 30 years, and you've been committed to the same firm and to the same industry. What has longevity in this career path and in this sector really teach you about constant reinvention and constant patience?
I mean, the great thing about the business that I'm in is that there's a new wave of innovation, new wave of amazing young entrepreneurs who want to change the world with every 5 to 10 years that go by. So while the job might be the same,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm constantly investing in entrepreneurs looking to bring new products into new markets, they're different markets, they're different innovations, they're different cycles, they're different types of entrepreneurs. And so there's constant ongoing education for me, and ongoing excitement about what I do every day.
And within that field, I feel like you've witnessed a big shift over the last 3 decades, from markets shifting to products changing and evolving. If we were to zoom in on how you look at investments, what carries the most weight for you? Is it most usually like a founder's vision? Is it market timing? How do you kind of listen to your gut and recognize the difference between kind of catching something early on or just totally being wrong?
I would say all of the above are very important in what we look for,
Mm-hmm.
where our due diligence goes before we decide to make an investment somewhere. We need the new products, we need the new markets, we need the innovation. But first and foremost, and the most important criteria for us are the teams and the
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs and who we're backing. The reason that's important is that in most cases, the initial business plan that we invest in ends up being a different business plan by the time we sell a company. And I'm talking about successful companies. So, and it all comes down to the entrepreneurs being willing and listening to what the market is telling them. Sometimes it's smooth sailing, exactly what they came up with in the first place. But in most cases, they go out with a value proposition and they listen to the market and they tune or sometimes completely pivot what they're looking. And if you're betting on the right people, ultimately they'll figure out a way how to build a business.
What would you say are some things that you look for? What's your radar like?
The radar, again, focusing on the people, looking for entrepreneurs who, first and foremost, have a vision and a mission. They want to go after an industry and innovate it or disrupt it. These are two very strong words. Not evolve it, but innovate it or disrupt it. And in most cases, there's a disruption that comes with their business plan. And it also means that if you're disrupting something, the people who are already in the industry you want to disrupt are telling you that that can't happen. That's not how the way we do things. Talking to young entrepreneurs, very often inexperienced entrepreneurs, looking to disrupt an industry where people with experience in that industry, you can't do this. Yet you still have the passion and you still have the drive to make it happen. These are the types of people that we want to invest in. But I would add also, I usually like to invest with people who I can see myself being partners with in the long run, who I can see myself having dinners with, see myself hanging out with socially. And the reason that's important, because we're going to be partners. At the end of the day, I'm not just an investor and I'm certainly not going to be their boss. I sit on their boards as a partner. And you want to partner with people where there's mutual trust, where there's mutual respect, where you're going to give your opinion and it's going to be okay if they don't follow it because you're not always right, and vice versa. But I want to be able to say, this is an individual who's going to be my partner in enabling his idea, her idea. So that's really what my criteria.
Looking back across decades of deals, is there one investment in particular or a team that stands out with going against, noise and trends and people saying you can't disrupt that and kind of making a difference in that sector?
So there's one investment that there are plenty more, but I'll come up with one. There's one investment that I'm involved with today that I'm on the board of. It's a company that enables consumers to pay for their parking on the street with their mobile device. It sells into municipalities, it sells into government entities that typically require long RFP, long sales cycles. And most venture capitalists or investors in technology companies don't like the nature of selling into government entities as opposed to commercial or consumer because it takes a long time to go through the RFPs that government contracts require. But the beauty of it is that once you're in, it's a very sticky relationship unless you do something wrong. And the reason I find it fascinating, other than the fact that they're already in almost 1,000 municipalities in the country, is the fact that there's so much disruption going on with cities around the world today, and certainly around the US, with scooters and e-bikes and e-commerce trucks taking over the curbs and so on and so forth, that I believe cities will come through for the next 10 to 15 years, will come through a major rehauling, rotation, and managing that flow around urban environments. And sitting there with technology and long-term contracts to enable the basic, which is parking, is a great opportunity to grow with all of that change that's going to happen.
Tapping into that network, step
Right.
one. Yeah. I feel like getting governments used to like hyper digital transformation takes so much time and trust in the systems, trust in the people owning that data.
Right.
That's something we can get into as well. But I feel like tackling those simplified systems is a good start. I would love to focus a little bit on technology and AI. You've seen tech's full arc. You've invested from the start of the internet boom to today's AI revolution. And in this constant reinvention that the world is going through, what do you feel like is some parallels or some differences that you can draw from those two eras, and things that maybe stand out as unique from the times that we're going through right now?
There are actually a lot of parallels.
Mhm.
Let's start there and then we'll talk about the differences. When I first started in the business, there was this thing that people had just discovered called the internet. And literally, it was around the time that I got into the venture business in 1993. And at the time, you won't remember, you're too young, but everybody was talking about all the investment that was going to enable the internet to be commercialized. And there was a lot of talk at the time about around how much investment was going into laying down fiber optic cables, for example, to provide all the bandwidth that was going to be required for the internet. A lot of money was invested in building that infrastructure. A lot of money was lost building that infrastructure. But if it wasn't for that investment, you would have never seen what came the next 20 years in terms of commercialization of the internet and what we know today and take for granted. I think we're seeing the same thing with AI. And this is phase two of what the internet has enabled, where we're now seeing a lot of investment into what's going to be required to run AI applications. And not a day goes by without us hearing about multi-billion-dollar investments in data centers and enabling technologies to run these data centers. And again, there's a lot of concerns, and we're reading about them in the papers today, that it's almost like reading the papers in 1999, where it's going to take so much money to recoup that investment. And a lot of money could be wasted in all of the money that's going into build centers. That might very well be, but we will not see the innovation that we're about to see for the next 20, 30 years from AI without that investment. So where we're focused as a venture firm is on the next wave of what's going to take advantage of that investment. So we're focused mainly on the applications that are going to be born from the investment that the big boys companies are making today.
Do you feel like the infrastructure is there and the next step is kind of applied AI?
Oh, for sure. I mean, applied AI is a broad definition where you take it, but the context of you look at ChatGPT today, it has the same wow factor when you first use it as Google did when we first started searching on the internet.
True.
Right. And that's just the beginning. Now we're starting to see, I think we'll see different cycles in commercial and business to business use of AI versus consumer. And so we're involved with a lot of investments selling into businesses to leverage AI. But we're already starting to see corporate America saying, wait a second, we could use AI for this, but we certainly cannot use it for that. We're certainly not going to give our data to third-party organizations that are going to make it available to everyone in the world. So a lot of constraints will come into play when the technology is taken. But it's no different than what we saw in the adoption of B2B internet applications versus B2C applications.
I think people similar to like having their own servers and IT departments, kind of how does a localized AI build look like for these companies?
I mean, I just got an email last week from our compliance department that basically says these are the applications you're allowed to use, and these are the applications you're not allowed to use. And these are new regulations that firms like ours have to manage at this point in terms of what information we can put.
And the companies that you're looking at, especially as people are trying to kind of adopt AI within specific industries, is there some untapped potential or underinvestments that you feel like is happening from your vantage point? And then maybe we could talk about the differences you do see from back in the days.
I mean, I don't know if I would call it underinvestment because there's so much capital chasing the opportunities today. I would actually flip it and say there might be a little too much investment with too many companies chasing the same value propositions. We saw that at the tail end of the internet cycle right before the boost, where we saw 20 companies chase the same thing. I would say today that's magnified by 5 to 10x, given the amount of capital chasing the opportunity. So I would worry more about overinvestment than underinvestment at this stage.
There's a lot of talk, and I feel like a few key people have been coming up and speaking about this bubble burst when it comes to AI. And I think it hints to your analysis of there's just too much being poured into that sector. What's your take on that?
I mean, for someone like me who's up in this industry and I've been doing this for more than 30 years, I've seen this story before and I've seen these articles before. The press loves to talk about bubble that feeds on itself, and eventually perception leads to reality. I am willing to bet there will be huge winners that come out of this cycle, and there will be big blowups and busts that come out of this cycle. So when everybody's benefiting from something, and you know that will be winners and losers, at some point, when the market starts realizing who's winning and who's losing, there will be a correction on overall valuations. So yes, there will be, in my opinion, a correction. I would not be willing to bet on when that's going to happen. But that doesn't mean that the cycle isn't here to become a major new cycle for the next 20 years.
In terms of the way this innovation is spreading around the world, I think from the internet to today, fast access to technology and tools, it's helping Silicon Valley's models spread much faster. And we are seeing new tech hub rise all over the world in this new age of AI. Do you think there's some emerging region that embodies that same early stage spirit that Silicon Valley once had and may have the potential to become the next tech hub?
So a few years ago, I was on the board of an organization for the Lebanon chapter, this global organization called Endeavor. It's called Endeavor Global, and its mission was to identify entrepreneurs all over the world. Not just startup entrepreneurs, but entrepreneurs all over the world, and give them access to a global network of people who wanted to enable and help these entrepreneurs. So my focus at the time was on the Lebanese board and helping entrepreneurs who were coming out of Lebanon. But in the context of seeing at what was happening in Latin America, in Africa, in Europe, in various less developed as well as developed markets, innovation is spreading everywhere. Entrepreneurship is spreading everywhere. Now, what will make certain geographies better than others? Everybody wants to replicate what Silicon Valley has created. When I first started in the business, I was in New York. I was spending 30% of my time in Texas, 30% of my time in California, 30% of my time in Boston, and 10% everywhere else. Today, I spend 70% of my time in New York. New York has become the second biggest market. And the reason that happened is because it developed an ecosystem of entrepreneurship beyond just attracting the entrepreneurs. And I mention that because while a lot of different regions present a lot of opportunities today, and you're seeing entrepreneurs emerge, what's equally, if not more important, is for the ecosystem around them to also emerge. And that typically requires the ecosystem working together and government entities and organizations collaborating and enabling that ecosystem to work. And I'll give a quick example. When we first started, I've been involved in a number of initiatives in the New York market, but most of them catalyzed by the Partnership for New York City, the New York City Investment Fund. In the early days, it was the New York New Media Association, which saw the potential for digital media to disrupt or innovate traditional media, and brought together people from the entrepreneurship ecosystem, venture capitalists, but also people from the traditional industries that made the New York media industry unique and competitively differentiated. So people from advertising, from the magazine business, from the newspaper business, and kind of created an environment where we all went out for drinks at night. We all went to formal conferences and so on and so forth. Everybody got to meet each other. And it attracted people from traditional media moving into new media. It helped people coming in from new media sell their products and their advertising and so on and so forth. So it created that economic ecosystem around what made New York competitively differentiated. They did the same thing in the fintech industry. They did the same thing in health tech, given the presence of the major hospitals around New York. And we're starting to see that happen in markets around the world, in some of the Nordic, Western European countries, in Berlin, in Stockholm, and hopefully we're starting to see it in the Arab world as well. Lebanon has a chance, still has a chance. We saw early innings of it in Jordan and in Amman and Cairo. We're seeing a lot today in Dubai, a lot in Saudi Arabia.
It's very exciting because I think is helping propel this globalization when it comes to spreading innovation around the world. I would love to focus on this entrepreneurship angle. What would make a great founder, and what are the qualities or characters needed to survive today?
So a great founder, in my opinion, is someone, again, with a passion and a vision and a drive to go through walls to prove the world wrong and get their product and their ideas to market. It's also someone who's charismatic enough as a leader to know how to surround themselves with people with complementary and most of the time better strength than his or hers. So a leader, no company can depend on one individual. Usually, we've heard of a few stars in history, but typically it's a team's effort. And when you have someone who's an incredible product visionary, they typically need to complement themselves with someone who knows how to run the numbers, with someone who knows how to put together a go-to-market organization, hire salespeople, so on and so forth, depending on the business. So it is that individual someone who can attract top-notch, proven execs and co-founders and team members to join the organization, because A people hire B individuals hire C individuals, C individuals hire D individuals. The top-notch execs are the ones who always hire people who eventually could be better than them. And finally, again, this is something for us as a firm, and for me, it are the people whose ethics I ascribe to and who I want to call my partners, not just an investment.
With AI coming into the picture, there's a lot of people turning into AI as their catalyzers of ideas to help them kind of run an MVP very quick or really get a prototype going. And AI is starting to act like a lot of those key team members, and this solo entrepreneurship thing is coming up. What excites you most about this era or not, where young people may be creating new opportunities instead of searching for jobs?
So, broadly speaking, what excites me most, I mean, people talk about AI as potentially coming in and disrupting everybody's jobs, and there will be some truth to that, especially for high cost office jobs or through robotics and so on and so forth. But what excites me the most is not the cost cutting part of this. What excites me the most about the AI revolution is the innovation in terms of new ideas and new products. It's the innovation on things that would not be possible without AI. It's new drug discovery and cancer cure, things like that you could not imagine doing them within the lifetime of an individual working on it without a technology enabling the ultimate solution.
Real solutions to real problems.
Real solutions to real problems and real innovations to things we haven't even thought about.
Kind of learning how to imagine again.
Right.
From your vantage point, especially engaging in businesses from your time here, but also in Lebanon, what can the East teach the West about innovation and community?
What can the East teach the West? That's a good one. There's a book that Tom Friedman wrote called The Lexus and the Olive Tree. And the book at the time was about how the East is still attached to its culture and its roots and refusing globalization, and how globalization is enabling but is unfortunately killing some of the roots that we all take pride of. I think the East can teach the West that you can have a much more fulfilling life while being successful in business and embracing all of the opportunities and the sound governments that the West enables today, while retaining your roots, retaining the importance of family. So that's something that's tough to hold on to without compromising the opportunities that the West provides.
Yeah.
But for someone like me, it's as important as business success.
I feel like it's a constant dilemma of just continuing our businesses here, but always having a foot back in our roots. Is there a story or a memory that captures how you stay connected to Lebanon, or how it still lives in your everyday life, even from afar?
I mean, yeah, there's the daily calls to my mother. That's how I get connected every day. Yeah, there's the mandatory family dinners where, even though my kids live in their own apartments, they still have to show up once a week and have dinner with us. So these are the things that I tend to put a lot more value on them than maybe the average New Yorker.
Beyond your work in venture capital, you've also been deeply involved in philanthropic and development effort. You founded SEAL, the Social Economic Action for Lebanon Foundation.
Co-founded SEAL.
Co-founded SEAL. to truly mobilize the Lebanese diaspora and fund projects in Lebanon for sustainable development, to create job and empower small businesses. Can you talk to us about what drew you first to that mission and share more about your experience leading the foundation and maybe throw in a story that illustrates the power of that foundation?
So when we first came together, and we were all the co-founders of Seal, we were all in our 20s at the
Oh,
time,
wow.
and we were all going through the phase of, are we staying here, or are we going back, and how
Hmm.
long are we staying here for? And I think the origins of Seal was to do something so that we don't turn our back on where we came from, and to keep us engaged. Now it has grown to become a much more successful organization than we maybe all thought of at the time that we started it. Um, it's so, it the success has come from obviously the projects that we've done there, the credibility that we've managed to build with the community in the
Hmm.
U.S. That's trusted us with. There's always a skepticism of who am I giving money to, what's money going for, and do you differentiate some groups over others? And the reality is, at this point, we're 25 years into the story, and the story has been a consistent credibility of enabling all communities around the country and really going at the heart of how can we help you become more self-sufficient? How can we help you regain your pride in creating your own employment and your own source of living and your income? Um, the projects, if you ever got a chance to tour some of them, and the organization now offers tours to people who want to learn about them, is to go and see what impact it's having on the communities that we're. And these are all micro projects going in with billions or millions of dollars. We're going in with 25,000 here, $50,000 there, but amazing what when you look at the impact that the $50,000 in a village will have on
Wow.
dozens, if not hundreds, of people. I would say the most amazing impact that I've seen on the impact of the project at the last gala dinner that we had in New York, more than a third of the room, of the audience in the room, was under 30 years old.
Oh, wow.
And the reason that's important, I mean, my kids were there, but the reason that I believe that's important is that the mission that we initially started out with of keeping our roots there and not forgetting where we came from is now migrating over to our children. And hopefully from them, as they take over the leadership of the organization, over time, they'll pass that on to their children as well. And that will create a permanent bond between the diaspora and the people who refuse to turn
Hmm.
their back on their roots and the people who stayed behind.
That's a beautiful thing. I was going to ask you what keeps you motivated, but I think you've answered it
That I think you got.
with that. I would love to focus on Lebanon. You were talking about those self sustaining projects to truly activate the community to be able to get up on their own and not have to heavily rely on governance. If you were, and I think there's been a lot of hope and talk around Lebanon's future, especially this year. And in your position, if you were to design maybe an investment roadmap for Lebanon today, which sectors or industry do you believe hold the greatest potential for long term resilience and maybe growth on a global platform if nurtured correctly?
Sure. I mean, obviously, we all know about the reforms that are needed at the government level in terms of security, in terms of accountability, judiciary protection, all of the things that we all know about, the financial system, so on and so on. And that's almost a requirement to anything happening. If those things don't happen, we can come up with great ideas, but they'll always be very hard to execute on. Now, I'm going to assume and be positive because there is a wave of optimism today. And like you said, that these reforms are going to take root. I think we first start with what's made Lebanon unique back in the days where Lebanon was prosperous. And I think the initial focus should be on what made us unique and making sure that those sectors get back to their performance, their historical performance. You can think of the banking sector, you can think of the tourism sector, you can think of manufacturing, agriculture. Those were the main sectors that drove our GDP at the time. But the good news is that there are opportunities to now create new sectors, given where we're based for the 21st century. Technology is an obvious one, and I would say you can't even think of a 21st century prosperous economy without having a driver be in a technology sector in some shape or form. micro level differentiation, or New York is not a semiconductor market, a fintech market, it's a digital media market, it's an enterprise software market. Think about what makes the place competitively differentiated, and really focus on some of new companies to invest in. And I think there's opportunities in the manufacturing sector as well, to reignite manufacturing. I ran into a company the other day called Multilane, which has built a campus to do verification for for AI equipment, selling into global manufacturers all around the world.
Oh, wow.
And they're now going after building a number of campuses around the country. I think they're hiring hundreds of people. It's an incredible success story that one should look at and try to extrapolate from. Lots of opportunities to build some of these new cutting edge next generation industries and companies.
There's been growing discussion talking about tech in Lebanon, about Lebanon's newly established Ministry of Technology and the new AI policy framework they've been shaping. From your perspective, how can the country truly embrace this necessary need for technology to enable innovation and meaningfully rebuild the Lebanese economy?
First I'll start by saying that ministry is run by a close friend of mine.
Okay.
So I'm going to have to be very positive beyond the fact that I really, when it first came out, it got a lot of criticism from people saying, we don't have a technology industry.
Yeah.
We don't have AI. What is this industry doing? But the fact that the government thought about this role sends, first of all, a very clear message that we're building a country for the 21st century. We're not just looking back, we're also looking forward. And it's put someone in place who has substantial experience outside the country, who can come in and lay the groundwork in the industry. Whether that ministry or that individual stay in that role for the long run, who knows? But the fact that we've laid the foundation to start thinking about this next industry, where we're starting at the same level as everybody around us.
Yeah. At the right time, too.
Is an amazing message, in my opinion.
Do you feel like it could help attract more capital to run the country more sustainably? Or what do you think needs to shift to kind of rebuild this trust that we're talking about?
Well, the good news is that there is a lot of capital who wants to invest in Lebanon, investing in it borderline reluctantly sometimes for emotional reasons. So there's clearly a lot of capital with the diaspora. There's a lot of capital with the neighboring countries and the friendly countries who see the potential for a place like Lebanon to reemerge. But there are some essentials that need to happen before that capital comes in. Whenever I get calls, people who want to solicit my investment in the country, I always ask, are you asking from the left pocket or the right pocket? The left pocket is what I do for a living that requires a certain return. And if I'm not completely focused on that return, the right pocket never works. The right pocket is my philanthropic activity. The checks are different in size, the scrutiny is different, and what I expect from that investment is very different. Ultimately, the left pocket has to work, meaning the investment opportunities should go beyond emotional investment and emotional investments that come from the heart, because it has to be an investment that I can safely tell my investors who are not Lebanese and don't have the emotional attachment that you should put your money into the country and you'll generate X in return. And it's a return that's commensurate with the risk or commensurate with the opportunities that you find anywhere else in the world. For that to happen, all the necessary reforms have to happen first.
When you think about Lebanon's future, and maybe we'll focus on the right pocket beyond the numbers and beyond the reforms, is there an image or a feeling that comes to mind that you really hold on to, that hope about what Lebanon's future could look like if everything checks the boxes?
Yeah, I mean, the future could be all of the industries we just talked about. It should be that 80% plus of the graduates of the universities and the schools stay in the country. They don't have to ask favors for jobs. Young people creating new companies and attracting their classmates to join those companies. There's no reason that doesn't happen. They're doing it outside the country, and they're starting to do it in Lebanon as well. And some of them have done it despite all odds in the last 15 years. So if they've been able to build some of these companies, Toters, for example, the delivery company, an incredible success out of the country. If these guys have been able to build that kind of company despite everything that the country has gone
In
through,
the country.
think about the potential for it if things were stable around us.
We do have a lot of key startups that have been popping up, whether it's in the US market or
Right.
the Middle East region, that have gotten global recognition. And it is exciting to see what that could
Sure.
be if done back home.
Calci, for example.
True.
There's nothing that requires Calci to be in the US. That company could have launched out of Lebanon.
From a
No.
team perspective or from a name perspective?
No, in terms of the value proposition that it brought to the market.
Mhm.
It's a global concept. Anybody from all around the world can participate. The product could sit on any cloud computing server anywhere in the world. Now, it went into the US and attracted US venture capital, and it's now risen to become a huge company, but it didn't have to be sitting in the US. So I hope that we will see similar opportunities emerge out of Lebanon, but stay in Lebanon.
We are commonly known for our brain drain, with expats continuously seeking education. And then once they finish their education, that same dilemma, do I stay or do I go? And I feel like we are at another inflection point of that with our generation and with reforms happening in Lebanon, but maybe through the broader region. How can we create a climate where the youth can innovate from within instead of seeking opportunities abroad? Overlooking all these instabilities and encouraging them. What can we create?
I mean, I'm going to start by saying we includes the government. The government knows what they're supposed to do
Yeah.
to make things easier, but we shouldn't just depend on that. Just say we can't do it unless following reforms happen. So without that happening and catalyzing and accelerating things, I think the onus is on all of us to figure out how to help the people who decide to stay behind on introducing them to capital and markets. So I've been involved with some other NGOs like LIFE, for example,
Mhm.
these International Finance Executives, or LebNet, which is a similar concept of bringing the diaspora in technology as opposed to finance to help each other. And their opportunities could be to look at new companies that are created in Lebanon and help them by introducing them to investors and customers. Customers are as important, if not more important, than investors, and open up market opportunities for the products that they create in Lebanon. If you think about the world of technology, it could be built anywhere as long as you have a computer,
True.
right? Unless you're in manufacturing semiconductors
Mhm.
and the like. So if people want to start a company on based in Lebanon,
Mhm.
engineers from the universities there, and build the products there, we could, as a diaspora, help these companies by introducing them to the global network that we run with every day ourselves.
Looking back, we'd love to kind of start hinting towards some lessons and your legacy that you've built. Is there an advice you would like to give to this next generation of founders, whether back home or here in the US, that are trying to build in today's climate?
One, I would say, if you have a passion, follow your gut. Don't wait for all the naysayers to convince you out of it. And the one thing that's still maybe a bit of a taboo in our culture is that some of the best entrepreneurs have failed once or twice before they hit the home run. In our culture, failure is frowned
Mhm.
upon by family, friends, and business associates. If you're not willing to fail, and if you're not willing to look at a failure as a lesson, then you shouldn't be in the venture business. You shouldn't be a startup. It's too risky for you. But if you really have the energy, the passion, and your gut is telling you to chase something, go for it. And you should be very comfortable with the notion of failure. It's a lesson, not a failure.
Is there an early founder or mentor early on in your career who has made a strong and lasting impression on you?
I mean, a lot of founders in my business career who I've invested with and have turned into very close friends of mine. In terms of mentors, I still go back to my family. Maybe my father teaching me the one lesson that I find very invaluable in life: of life is a roller coaster ride, and the most important thing is to learn how to get up every time you fall.
Absolutely.
And going further back to my grandfather, who taught me the one lesson that the name is much more important than any money one can make in life. So,
If you were to look back at those 3 decades and kind of draw a through line from your career and your life journey, is there maybe a theme or a principle that has constantly stuck with you?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I would say it's surround yourselves with the people who are stronger than you, smarter than you, but more importantly, as ethical. And business ethics is my number one, two, and three priority. And the rest is all about who you surround with yourself with, who you spend your time with. And again, there's also the principle of work hard and play hard.
Yeah.
In other words, life is not just about working and making money, it's also about enjoying it and enjoying it with family, friends, and whatever else you like to do in life.
The things that East teach us about the way you live your life. I would love to wrap this up with a rapid fire round when I can ask you just a couple of quick questions with quick answers.
Sure.
I would love to start with what is the first investment you've ever made?
First investment I ever made was in a company called AnswerSoft, which was a computer telephony interface software that allowed customer agents to have data on an inbound call.
Wow.
And this is back in 1993. First investments I ever made as a partner were in the first two social communities online. One was a company called iVillage, which was a social network online for women, and that company went on to go public and ultimately sold. And another one called Tripod, which was the largest at the time network for people building their homepages on the internet.
Wow.
Which we sold to Lycos for less than a year, but
It
both came at the same time in 1997.
Impressive. It really shows just how far we've gotten from the tech perspective. Is there a book that has changed the way you think about business or life?
Business or life? Business, I would say a book called Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, which really puts a very different perspective on people who react very quickly based on fact and gut at their time and maybe don't deserve as much credit when they think through an answer. And really taught me a lot about dynamics in my business. And on a personal level, probably the most fascinating one I've read is from Amin Makhlouf, Origins, which has to do with our story and the story of the Lebanese diaspora.
That's beautiful. Is there a big risk that you look back on that you did not take and still wonder about?
Moving back to Lebanon.
Would you have done things differently?
Oh, for sure. Life would have been very different.
When you think of Lebanon, in one word, what comes to mind first?
Roots.
To wrap it up, if there's a Lebanese dish, song, or place that brings you back home, what would it be?
Sherry.
That's so beautiful. Habib, thank you so much for being here with us today.
My pleasure.
Really enjoyed having you on Talk on the Pod.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.